tonight's news edition. The French president arrives in Amman on a working visit and holds talks with His Majesty the King on the Syrian conflict and Mid-East peace efforts. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas accepts the resignation of his prime minister 2 weeks after he was appointed, raising speculation on Palestinian stability. And an Egyptian court accuses the Muslim Brotherhood and President Mohammed Morsi of carrying out a mass jailbreak during the 2011 uprising. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. French President François Hollande and Valérie Trierweiler arrived in Amman this evening on a working visit to the kingdom. Their Majesties King Abdullah and Queen Rania were at the royal offices in Humar to receive them, where an official ceremony was accorded to Jordan's guests. His Majesty and Hollande then headed to a working dinner where they held a round of talks attended by senior Jordanian and French officials. King Abdullah thanked Hollande for French support to Jordan as it faces many challenges, highlighting the French government's assistance to the government as it now hosts over 500,000 Syrian refugees. France has already offered 100 million euros in support to Syrian refugees and has donated a hospital to Zaatri refugee camp. King Abdullah spoke of Jordan's overwhelmed resources as a result of the growing influx of Syrians, including its water, energy, health, and education resources. He again cautioned against the repercussions of a prolonged conflict on the entire region, while Hollande commended Jordan's efforts to the refugees, noting that efficient coordination is needed among donor countries.
We both believe that the longer that the Syrian conflict goes on, the greater it will have on long-term implications, and therefore we both are working very hard on inclusive transition for Syria that is encompassing to all. And if we don't do this, the longer that this goes on, obviously, the chance of total collapse of the country of Syria.
On the question of refugees, we know that this weighs on Jordan and Lebanon, and we must do whatever we can in order to increase our support, which is already substantial. We have provided 100 million euros of budget aid, and we need to go on using this aid for helping the refugees.
On the Palestinian-Israeli Mideast process, His Majesty voiced appreciation to international efforts to kickstart peace negotiations.
We both agree the core cause of instability in the region and beyond. We are both aware of Secretary Kerry's plan and his efforts that he exerted to bring both sides together, and I know that France and Jordan will be playing a supporting role in that issue. And again, Europe has shown tremendous support to the peace process, and its role is crucial as we agree. What is most important is that we don't lose the momentum at this moment, and we believe that there's a very narrow window of opportunity. The only concern that we continue to point out that Israeli settlements and provocations in Jerusalem must be brought to an end to give peace a chance, especially in this very critical period.
Earlier, His Majesty attended a ceremony marking the 50th anniversary of the Amman Chamber of Industry. The King honored the Chamber's former chairman and board members for their contribution to developing Jordanian industries. His Majesty also announced the launch of Made in Jordan campaign with the aim of promoting and marketing Jordanian products in the local market and increasing consumers' confidence in domestic products. Minister of Industry and Trade Hatem Halawani praised the King's support to the industrial sector, noting that gross domestic product had risen from 5 billion dinars in 1999 to 22 billion dinars last year. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour called for a comprehensive assessment of higher education in Jordan to ensure that vital sector can reinstate its prominence as a provider of qualified human resources. Mansour was speaking during a meeting at Al Hussein Sports City with university presidents, members of the Board of Trustees, as well as the Higher Education Council board members. He called on representatives of the higher education sector to draft a national education strategy, one that is drawn up by the sector itself as a collective effort by the universities. Mansour also gave instructions to include the education sector in projects that will be funded by the $5 billion Gulf grant. The meeting decided to form a committee of academics to identify challenges facing the higher education sector and to draft a strategy that provides proposed solutions. Attendees highlighted the need for the independence of universities and agreed on the urgency to look into the reasons leading to campus violence and to propose policies to deal with the problem. Jordan will not allow anyone to tamper with its security and stability and will take tough legal and administrative measures against those who violate its sovereignty, said Minister of Interior and Minister of Municipal Affairs Hussein Majali. He made the remarks during a meeting with Secretary General of the Islamic Action Front, Hamza Mansour, and other leaders of the Islamic movement. The meeting focused on Friday's anti-Hezbollah rally in Amman that was organized by the front, especially the participation of Syrian nationals in the march. Majali said the ministry followed closely the slogans raised by Syrians, noting they were not related to their cause, but were offensive to Jordan and to Jordanian public figures. Some 800 protesters, including 270 Syrians, had taken part in the rally. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas accepted the resignation of Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah, who announced on Thursday he is quitting just 2 weeks after taking office. Hamdallah, an academic and independent, was asked to head an interim government until a new government is formed. His surprise move is seen to undermine Palestinian stability at a time when the United States is trying to revive Palestinian-Israeli peace talks. Palestinian officials say Hamdallah had offered to resign after a dispute over authority with his Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs, Mohammed Mustafa. Before arriving in Amman, French President François Hollande said in Doha that moderate rebels must take territory held by radical Islamists whose involvement in the conflict give President Bashar al-Assad a pretext for more violence. His comments came one day after the Friends of Syria agreed to provide urgent military aid to the rebels. France has been at the forefront of Western efforts to reorganize and back the Syrian opposition. Lu'ay Balqar, details.
French President François Hollande, who arrived in Qatar yesterday for talks on the Syrian civil war, reaffirmed today that the rebels must take back control of areas from Syrian regime and welcomed a decision that allows support to the Syrian opposition.
We have to agree with other Europeans and also with our American friends because we have some conditions. The first condition is for the opposition to organize themselves politically and militarily. The second condition is that we cannot imagine providing arms to groups that could one day use them against a democratic state or eventually even against us.
A meeting on the future of Syria between Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, and US Secretary of State John Kerry again aimed to bolster support for Syrian rebels fighting against President Bashar al-Assad. The 11 main countries which form the Friends of Syria group agreed yesterday to provide urgently all the necessary material and equipment to the opposition fighting the Syrian army, and each country in its own way in order to enable them to counter attacks by the regime and its allies.
We have said today very clearly we are going to step up in order to provide the capacity to the SMC and to the Syrian opposition to be able to directly address the situation on the ground. Now, that's as specific as I can be and as I intend to be here today.
The Free Syrian Army spokesman Lu'ay Miqdad confirmed some of that support is already being seen on the ground. Meanwhile, the ministers also expressed their strong concern about the growing sectarian nature of the conflict, adding the interventions threaten the unity of Syria and broaden the conflict across the region.
We disagree with Hezbollah because the situation has exceeded the defense of a state and has become ideological and has become about the intervention in another state and the failure to help realize stability there. And this is really our disagreement with them.
So far, the flames of war have claimed at least 93,000 lives and waiting to be put out. Lu'ay Balqar for the news at 10.
On the ground, Syrian rebels who recently received international backing for urgent military support appear to be launching fresh attacks on the Syrian forces. Syrian rebels attacked 2 security compounds in Damascus, killing at least 5 people. Activists said rebels attacked a compound in the district of Rukn al-Din with explosives and another in Bab Masalla with mortar rounds. They said clashes took place between rebels and government forces in the area, which has already been under heavy arms shelling in the past few days to drive rebels out. Elsewhere in Aleppo, a government tank at a military airport was blown up while rebels and Syrian soldiers clashed over control of the city. In neighboring Lebanon, 3 Lebanese soldiers were killed in the coastal city of Sidon in clashes with anti-Hezbollah followers criticizing Hezbollah's military intervention in Syria. Sources in the city said the fighting broke out when an anti-Hezbollah follower was arrested at an army roadblock in the city. The clashes were followed by fighting between Hezbollah members and the activists. Egypt's army issued a sharp warning to political factions that it would not stand by if opposition rallies next weekend descend into conflict, and it urged politicians to forge consensus. In a statement, head of the Armed Forces and Defense Minister Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said he would not allow an attack on the will of the people and that politicians should have a few days remaining before the mass rallies to seek a settlement to their disputes. The warning came as opposition groups are organizing mass demonstrations on the 30th of this month to call for President Mohamed Morsi to resign. The opposition coalition said it has gathered 15 million signatures on a petition calling for Morsi to step down, topping the 13 million votes that won him the presidency. Meanwhile, an Egyptian court accused Muslim Brotherhood members, including President Mohamed Morsi, of conspiring with Hamas and Hezbollah to carry out a mass jailbreak during the uprising that toppled Hosni Mubarak in 2011. The court requested that Interpol arrest key members of Hezbollah, Hamas, and Al-Qaeda for interrogation charges of escape from prison. After the judgment, opponents of President Morsi gathered outside the court calling for his resignation. The case has been referred to the public prosecution for further investigation into the incident. In Iraq, a suicide bomber killed at least 12 people in an attack on a mosque near the capital and wounded 25 others during evening prayers. Elsewhere, a roadside bomb near a cluster of restaurants in the center of Baghdad also killed 2 people. In Tikrit, 2 people were killed when gunmen hurled a hand grenade at a gathering of laborers. And in the province of Anbar, close to the Syrian border, gunmen detonated 2 car bombs near a checkpoint and attacked it with rocket-propelled grenades, killing 5 policemen. Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan denounced protesters for once again taking over Istanbul's Taksim Square. Riot police fired water cannons to disperse thousands of demonstrators yesterday. Erdogan spoke to supporters in a rally, the 5th of a series of mass meetings which he has called since protesters began early this month. The Prime Minister, who has led Turkey through an economic boom and still enjoys broad popular support, said an interest rate lobby of speculators in financial markets have benefited from the unrest. Mohamed Assaf, the singer from Gaza refugee camp of Khan Yunis, has captured the hearts of millions of Arabs after participating in the popular TV show Arab Idol. Assaf claimed the highest number of votes won on NBC, over 60 million. Proud Palestinians were overjoyed with his victory. We get more on their reactions in this report.
Palestinian Mohamed Assaf falls to his knees, crowned Arab Idol. His victory ignited jubilation in the West Gaza and Jerusalem Saturday night. The 22-year-old student from Khan Yunis refugee camp shot to fame singing national songs. Today, Mohamed Assaf, after winning, returned the joy to our lives, says this man. He said to the whole world that we do not like blood, we love peace, we work for peace. His mom was in the audience in Beirut Saturday when he beat an Egyptian and a Syrian singer for the title of the spin-off reality show.
Most importantly, I am feeling proud. proud of the Palestinian people who showed the world that they are alive, alive.
Seen here during an earlier show, after the finale, the UN named Assad its first youth ambassador to Palestinian refugee camps.
A revolution is not just one carrying the rifle. It is the paintbrush of an artist, the scalpel of a surgeon, the axe of the farmer. This is something I consider logical. Everyone struggles for their cause the way they see fit.
Though some Palestinians dismissed the show as a distraction from Israeli occupation, residents of Gaza, the West Bank, and Jerusalem filled the streets with mass celebrations.
Once again, Miami Heat are the NBA champions. Their 95-88 victory against the San Antonio Spurs was an epic Game 7 for the series. Miami's LeBron James, named Most Valuable Player of the Finals, had a game high of 37 points and pulled in 12 rebounds in a dominant performance, while Dwayne Wade added 23 points. San Antonio, chasing a fifth NBA title, were just seconds away from clinching the championship on Tuesday before Miami staged an extraordinary comeback to win it in overtime and force a decisive seventh game. Tim Duncan scored 24 points and grabbed 12 rebounds for the Spurs, whipping basketball into a frenzy of excitement during a wildly fluctuating series full of escalating drama. Sebastian Ogier led the rally of Italy in Sardinia from start to the finish to extend his points lead to 154. Second was Belgium's Thierry Neuville, hard charging in his Ford, finish 1 minute 16.8 seconds behind Ogier and take over third place in the championship. Completing the podium positions was Jarimati Latvala, who battled back from a 2-minute loss on the first day after suffering a puncture. And finally, for a quick look at the weather. Mild weather tonight with northwesterly moderate winds. Our normal summer conditions prevail in hilly areas while remaining relatively hot in other regions. Winds will be northwesterly moderate to brisk, blowing dust in the southern and eastern regions. Further south in the Gulf of Aqaba, it will be hot tomorrow with northerly moderate to fresh winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. French President arrives in Amman on a working visit and holds talks with His Majesty the King on the Syrian conflict and Mid-East peace efforts. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas accepts the resignation of his Prime Minister 2 weeks after he was appointed, raising speculation on Palestinian stability. And the court accuses the Muslim Brotherhood and President Mohammed Morsi of carrying out a mass jailbreak during the 2011 uprising. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.